Let's please give a very warm welcome to Shawn Fair, who is the Chief Executive Officer at Fair Consulting Group. He's going to talk to all of us about how to shift from being a boss to a coach. Welcome, Shawn.
There we go. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about me, and then we'll just jump right into it. Back when I was in college, I leased my very first car. And my very first car was the Dodge Shadow. How many of you guys have seen the Dodge Shadow before? We got a few. And so since you guys are looking at me like that, I said that was my first car. And I enjoyed that car. I loved that car because it was my very first car. And then 2 years later, I graduated college. I wanted to upgrade from the Dodge Shadow to the Dodge Neon, nitro package, fog lights, spin on the back, spoiler kit, the whole 9 yards. I got a decent job, and I had that car for 2 years. I enjoyed that car. I loved that car because it was my second car. 2 years later, I get a promotion, and by the way, this is a very true story. I went back to my favorite salesperson. Her name was Lisa. She had bright red hair. She was absolutely gorgeous. I didn't mind spending time with her, and the brand new Sebring had just came on the lot, and I wanted to drop dead price on the car, and Lisa did just that for me. And I had that car for 2 years. I enjoyed that car. I loved that car because it was my third car. And then 2 years later, the brand new 300M came out. I wanted the brand new 300M, white car, tan interior, and I went back to my favorite salesperson. Her name was what? Lisa. I just want to make sure you guys are paying attention to what I'm talking about. And I said, Lisa, I want the brand new 300M, white car, tan interior, and I don't want to go back and forth like we always do. I want you to go and talk to your manager, tell him that Shawn Fair has been here 4 times in 8 years, and I want to drop dead price on the car because this time, I'm going to do something very different. This time, I'm going to shop around, but I'm going to give you the last word. So she goes and talks to her manager. She comes back. She's fired up. I'm fired up. She gives me an amazing price on a brand new 300M white car, tan interior. As a matter of fact, the price was so good, I almost went against my word, which was what? Shop around. So what did I do next? I just want you guys to know that none of my questions are going to be rocket science today. I went to go shop around. So I went to Chrysler dealership B. I told that Chrysler dealership A gave me this price on a brand new 300M white car, tan interior. And sir, if you can beat the price, I'm going to do business with you. Now he goes and talks to his manager. He comes back. He's fired up. I'm fired up. He gives me an amazing price on a brand new 300M white car, tan interior. But then I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to think about it. Sir, I'm going to get back with you. So what do I do next? I'm going to Chrysler dealership C. And I told Chrysler dealership C that Chrysler dealership B gave me this price on a brand new 300M white car, tan interior. And ma'am, if you can beat the price, I'm going to do business with you. Now she goes and talks to her manager. She comes back. She's fired up. I'm fired up. She gives me an amazing price on a brand new 300M white car, tan interior. But then there was a question that popped up into my head at that moment. Do you know what that question was? Okay, I'm going to tell you what it was. I'm trying to figure out how come I couldn't have got this price the first time. I'm starting to feel a certain way about automotive salespeople. I don't like them. So what do I do next? I'm going to Chrysler dealership D. Now, I want you guys to understand, I've already exhausted all the Chrysler dealerships in the Detroit metropolitan area. This one is about 1 hour and 10 minutes away, but I'm going to drive out there anyway because I knew for a fact I was going to get a better price on the car. So I'm driving, right? I'm having a good time. I'm listening to my music. And when I get into the general vicinity of the place, I come to the realization that I'm lost. Right? I'm rolling around for about 20 to 25 minutes, and I can't find the place. But the one thing that was noticeable to me in this rural area was this massive Lexus dealership. So, I pull into the parking lot. I get out the car. I walk through the door. You guys know what happens next. The salesperson comes waltzing up to you. Hello, my name is so-and-so. What's your name? I said, my name is Shawn Fair. Well, Mr. Fair, what brings you into Lexus today? I said, man, I'm looking for the Chrysler dealership, and I was just wondering if you can point me in the right direction. He said, Mr. Fair, that's not a problem. See, if you go out the parking lot, you make a right-hand turn, you go a mile down the road, there's a street with no street sign on it. See, the Chrysler dealership is on that street, but it's just 100 yards off the block, so if you look to your left, you still wouldn't see it. I said, man, I must have passed by the street with no street sign on it about 10 different times, but because I didn't see the dealership, I didn't bother to make the left-hand turn. Now, I want you to understand something. I was relieved at that particular moment. So I'm walking out the door, and I'm minding my own business, by the way. He comes trotting behind me 15 steps later. Mr. Fair, I was just wondering, what were you going to buy at the Chrysler dealership? I said, man, I'm about to go buy the brand new 300M white car, tan interior. Do you know what this man said to me? I'm going to tell you what he said. He said, Mr. Fair, that's a gorgeous car. It's got a lot of bells and whistles on it, and the price point is absolutely amazing. Now, what was he doing? I'm going to tell you what he was doing. He was buttering me up, and you know what's coming next. Well, Mr. Fair, since you're already here, I was just wondering if you could spend a few minutes with me so I can tell you a little bit about Lexus. What did I say? I said, why not? Sure. But why did I say yes? Well, that was reason number 5. What else? Well, he helped me. That was reason number 3. What's that? That was reason number 7. But reason number 1 is he addressed my immediate concern, which was where was the Chrysler dealership? So, we walking back into the dealership, we having some small talk. I'm getting to know him a little bit, he's getting to know me. And as soon as we walk through the door, he says something like this, Mr. Fair, I gotta be honest with you. Now, you guys know when someone starts off a phrase, but I gotta be honest with you, something negative is coming behind that. Well, Mr. Fair, when you walked in, I was right in the middle of doing some paperwork. We're short-staffed today, so I was just wondering if you can give me about 10 minutes, and then I'll be right back with you. So I gave him the look, and it was a deep pause for a moment. And then he said, and by the way, this is right around 1996 time frame. And then he said, Mr. Fair, in the meantime, I would like you to go over to this corner of the dealership. There's some beer, wine, chip, and dip. And over in this corner, there's some internet access. I just want you to go over there and help yourself. So what do? I told y'all that none of my questions are going to be rocket science. I went over and I had some beer, wine, chip, and dip. And I'm over by the internet access, just kind of playing around for a moment. And then he comes back to me 10 minutes later. What's the problem? He's 5 minutes late. He said 10 minutes. He said, Mr. Fair, I apologize. It took me a little bit longer than I expected. But I noticed that you were enjoying the beer, wine, chip, and dip. And I see that you're using the internet access. I want to let you know that when you become a Lexus customer, you can come in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday and enjoy the beer, wine, chip, and dip on us. I said, you don't say. He said, Mr. Fair, if you buy a Lexus car today, what car would you buy? Well, the GS 400 with the bubble lights was real hot back in those days. And my first question to him was what? How much does the car cost, sir? He said, Mr. Fair, we're going to get to that in just a moment. So listen, he takes me behind these double doors, and behind the double doors is the mechanic shop. Now, I like to look around. I'm paying attention. The place is just spotless. There's no oil spills on the floor. The mechanics are walking around in these nice white overcoats, like when you go to the dentist. They're just clean. He said, Mr. Fair, I have to share something very important with you. He says, at Lexus, we only hire the best of the best. As a matter of fact, we only hire our mechanics from Toyota, which is our parent company. He says Chrysler Ford or GM will hire a Chrysler Ford or GM employee, and they will fix a Chrysler Ford or GM car. But at Lexus, we only service Lexus, which means we're the very best at what we do. I said, you don't say. How much does the car cost, is what I'm asking you. He said, Mr. Fair, we're going to get to that in just a moment. So he's taking me down this long hallway, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me. Now, he's not saying nothing. I'm starting to feel a little uncomfortable, And finally, he stops. He says, Mr. Fair, do you hear anything? I says, no. He says, right behind us is a Lexus car. I said, I see that. Well, Mr. Fair, the car's got 300,000 miles on it. I said, that's great. Well, it just so happens that this particular car is turned on. I said, that's awesome. He says, when you own a Lexus car, Mr. Fair, you bring it in every 90 days for service. Your car is going to have the same longevity and sound just like this one. I said, you don't say. But how much does the car cost is what I'm asking you. He said, Mr. Fair, we're going to get to that in just a moment. Now, back in those days, they had a guy named Jimmy. And Jimmy is the guy that would bring around the test car. I couldn't wait to test this puppy out. So I jump in, and guess who jumps in with me? The salesperson. And the first thing he does is he cranks up the music to let me know there's a great sound system in the car. I must look like I like music. I says, I get it. He turns it back down, and he says, Mr. Fair, I'm just wondering, how much time does it take you to get back and forth to work? You know, at the time, I was living in the Detroit area. I was an executive with this telecom company in Cleveland. Now, he's doing the math on this. Well, Mr. Fair, that's 3 hours going this way, and that's 3 hours coming back this way. That's 3 plus 3. That's 6. Now, how many times do you make that trip over the course of the week? I said, it's approximately 4 times. Well, Mr. Fair, that's 4 times 6. That's 24. He's talking to me like I don't understand how to do arithmetic. He said, Mr. Fair, I have to share something else that's very important. We have the best engineered engines of all of the automakers out there today, which means you're going to have a smooth ride for the 24 hours that you spend driving back and forth in your new Lexus vehicle. Now, I'm almost done with the story. Before I can get out my mouth, we pull back into the dealership. He says, Mr. Fair, do you know what this building is? I says, no, what is it? This is where we wash the Lexus car. See, Mr. Fair, when you own a Lexus car, you can bring your car in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and we'll wash your car at absolutely no charge. Oh, by the way, if you have a wife, girlfriend, or fiance who owns a Chrysler Ford GM, we will wash the Chrysler Ford GM for the simple fact that you own the Lexus. Now, we won't fix it, but we'll wash it. Oh, by the way, if you bring your car in and we're busy, we'll give you a Lexus loaner car for 2 hours. Go take care of your business, and when you come back, we'll have the car ready to go for you. Now, here's my question for you. What was the salesperson creating for me? It was a great, wonderful, emotional experience. It was better than any other experience that I had at any other dealership. My second question is, who is responsible for creating great and wonderful experiences both inside and outside of your organization? Who's responsible for that? The leaders are. Who else are responsible for that? Your team members are. And who is responsible for developing the team members to create great and wonderful emotional experiences both internally and externally? Who's responsible for that? The leaders are. Everything rises and falls based on your ability to lead. That's a fact. How many of you guys, let's be honest with me, when you started your careers, how many of you guys, you applied to be a manager? Okay, y'all don't want to raise your hand, that's fine. Okay, how many of you guys were you shoved into the position? Because that happens too. Now, whether you apply for the position or you were shoved into the position, it really doesn't matter. You made a conscious decision at that particular time to be a part of a very important business. What business is that? When you became a leader, you became a part of the people business. If you don't like people, you don't like training people, coaching people, counseling people, diagnosing people, hearing people, I can tell you right now, you're in the wrong business. And I'm going to tell you something else. And don't go back and tell your bosses I said it, because I'm going to deny it. They don't pay you enough to do this job if you do this job the right way, because it is very difficult to manage people from 9 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. for the simple fact that all of us in this room have 50,000 tasks that we have to do, and that they want us to manage people, their performance, their behaviors, the different generations in the workforce, their ADD, the bipolar, and everything else that comes along with it. You really have to expand your capacity in leadership in order to be an effective leader in today's environment. Now, I'm going to talk about the 3 styles of leadership. How many of you guys, you know your dominant style of leadership? Anybody knows that? I'm going to talk about 3 of them. The first one is called Autocratic Leadership. An autocratic leader believes in discipline. They believe in corrective action. It is important that they meet all the deadlines and that their team members meet all the deadlines. They have a my way or the highway mentality. Their way of doing things is the only way of doing things. You guys know who I'm talking about. Also, when they write their policies and procedures, they expect everyone to follow those policies and procedures exactly the way they're written. How many of you guys you lead that way? I know I made it sound real bad, didn't I? The fact of the matter is that all of us in this room at some point in time needs to demonstrate autocratic leadership. It is a wonderful way to lead. There's a time, there's a place, there's a person, there's a situation, there's a circumstance for it. For example, if I bring in new hires, they're green to the organization, they don't know much about anything, I'm going to tell them what to do, when to do it, and where to do it, and how to do it, until they're confident and competent to do the job. In other words, I'm going to give them direction. Or you may have a boss that injects themselves into your life at the last minute. They give you a task to give to the team. They knew about it 3 weeks ago. They give it to you 2 days before it's due. You don't have time to get your people's feedback. You're going to give them very specific instructions. It is a great and wonderful way to lead under the right circumstances. But you can't lead that way all the time. If you lead that way all the time, you're going to have some frustrated and angry people working for you. In the U.S., I work with many companies from New York to California. And when I have my discovery call with an executive, the first thing they want to do is start talking poorly about their people. And I had to stop them and say, listen, you're tainting my view. I don't want to know that information just yet. Do you mind if I come into the organization, like I want to come in the morning and just have some general conversations with your people? I want to get a chance to know them, and then I want to watch their behavior towards the end of the day. And then give me about 3 or 4 days to do that, and next Tuesday, then let's have this conversation. They always say yes, not a problem, Shawn. So when I walk in, I'm having some general conversations, and by the way, I'm a neutral figure when I come into the organization. And if the employees don't have anything good to say about the people that they work for, I know there's a problem with leadership. Now, I can sift through all of the over-exaggeration employees are going to give me, because that's going to happen too. But the bottom line is, if they don't have anything positive to say about the folks that they work for, there's a problem with leadership. Then I wait till the end of the day, especially in the office environment. You know, right around 4:30, quitting time is at 5 o'clock. Here's what you see. People are walking away from the office. They're walking away from the cubicle, and they have some small talk. How's everything going today? How is the family doing? You going to the basketball game tonight? They're having some small talk. What are they doing? They're passing the time. And then right around 4:45, people start walking to the bathroom. Of course, they want to pee on company time. And then right around 5 minutes to 5, the ladies. Now, I'm not talking about the ladies in this room. I'm talking about the other ladies. They go back to the office and they change from the dress shoes to the gym shoes because they want a fast escape out the door. And then managers, you guys know how this works. You need some last-minute information. You peek out your office, and everybody's what? They're already gone. Then you run to the windows, and you notice that all the cars are gone too. Because in autocratic leadership style companies, they done figure something out. They don't park their cars like regular folk. They back their cars in. That way, when they get in their car, they can just zoom right out the parking lot. And here's my point. If 5 o'clock p.m. is the highlight of your people's day, there's an issue with leadership. In other words, if they come in at 9 and all they're looking forward to is 5, you're going to get the least amount of their time, energy, and effort. They're going to do just enough just to get through the day. That's autocratic leadership. It's a great way to lead, but you can't lead that way all the time. Now, there is one part of autocratic leadership that we have to be consistent with. Now, behind me is a picture of Bob Ruff. Now, Bob Ruff is a good friend of mine. I've been knowing him for some years. He's what I would consider to be my problem friend. See, when I met him, he was right in the middle of a divorce. He's got 4 kids. The wife took the kids. She fell on a hard time. He moved into a 1-bedroom apartment. Then he had to take all the kids back. He had in and odd jobs, and he was just struggling through life. Like, we always have some tough times through life. Well, he was going through a tough time when I met him. But then all of a sudden, he gets a phone call from a very good company. And that company was called UPS, United States Postal Service. They're a great company. They started him off at $18 an hour. The next year, if he's there, they'll bump him up to $21 an hour as an automatic raise. In the third year, they bump him up to $35 an hour. They get paid overtime by the hour. They have a 401k matching plan, 50%. It's unlimited. They take great care of their people. And he called me up and said, Shawn, I got this great job, and I was just wondering if you have some luggage because they're sending me to Chicago, Illinois for corporate training. I said, sure, Bob. I got plenty of luggage for you. So anyway, he goes out there, and he's so excited about this job, and I'm so happy for him, because he just works really hard. And one day, I'm doing a training in California, and he sends me this very picture. Now, I didn't know why he sent me the picture. I didn't have time to go through all the text messages. I didn't know if he was trying to tell me he was looking good for the day or what was going on with him. But then at break, I started to read through the messages. He said to me, and by the way, this is his second day of training, Shawn, they're getting ready to fire me and this other trainee. They're in this holding room. And the executives are trying to figure out how to get them back to Detroit, what plane to get them on. And so they were waiting there for about 20 minutes, so he says. And then all of a sudden, the executives, they come out. And this is what they said to both of them. They said, guys, I believe, or we believe in second chances. Here's 2 big shavers. Here's 2 cans of shaving cream. Here's 2 wet towels. And here are 2 pocket mirrors. We want you to shave right here. And they did. And when they got done shaving, the one executive says, do you mind wiping your face off? And they did. And then the other executive says, very nicely, will you please pick up the pocket mirror and take a good look at yourself? And then he stated, this is our expectation moving forward. Before they went to training, they had to read this manual and they had to sign off on it. One of the policies was you have to be clean shaven at all times. Do you think that Bob Ruff had an issue with the way that interaction happened? In this particular case, he didn't. And the reason that he didn't have an issue with it is because leadership identified the blind spot immediately. In other words, had they waited 4 months for him to have a full-grown beard to address this issue, he would have had a major problem with it because for the simple fact that for 4 months, leadership said to him what, without saying it, that this behavior is acceptable behavior. So this is the one part of autocratic leadership that's important, that you have to do on a continual basis, is identify your people's blind spots on a continual basis. If there is no accountability, there's no growth. The employee doesn't grow. That is autocratic leadership. It's a great way to lead, but you can't lead that way all the time. The second style of leadership is called democratic leadership. Most of the managers across the world are democratic leaders. They believe in the team environment. Now, I have a very important question. I need you guys to answer this for me. Should the people that work for you like you? I'm getting a yes. Yeah. Anybody disagrees with yes? Well, the answer to that question is yes. It's okay for the people that work for you to like you. And here's the reason why. If I have to go to work for someone that I antagonize or don't like on a daily basis, what kind of environment is it for that person? Be honest with me. How many of you guys, at some point in time in your life, you work for someone that you genuinely just didn't like? You just wish they were sick or they was on vacation or something, right? You don't even want to come to work after a period of time. Having a relationship and being connected to your employees is a very important piece to having a productive employee. That's a motivational factor. It's a great and wonderful way to lead. So you have a connection with your employees. And it's important for a democratic leader that the employees have a relationship with one another. You give your team members a voice. You allow them to give feedback, and in some rare occasions, you're making your decisions based off of their feedback. And even more rare occasions, you are allowing the team to make decisions within the team environment. It's a great way to lead, but you can't lead that way all the time. Because if you lead that way all the time, if you're getting your folks' feedback all the time, if you're making decisions based on their feedback all the time, if you're allowing them to make decisions within the team environment all the time, you'll find out that over a period of time, that work is just not getting done. And all of a sudden, you'll have some frustrated and angry people working for you. It's a great way to lead. You just can't lead that way all the time. And the last one is called free rein leadership. This is one of my favorite styles of leadership. I love working for a free rein leader. In other words, how many guys you have some folks that's been working with you for 5, 6, 7 years? They kind of think like you think, they do like you do, they work like you work, they have a positive attitude when they come to work, they're very productive, the whole 9 yards, and therefore, you share your authority with those individuals. In other words, you're saying to the employee that you what? You trust them. You allow them to make decisions within their position. It is a wonderful way to lead someone. But you guys know what I'm going to say. You can't lead that way all the time. Because if you're sharing your authority with your employees all the time, you will find out over a period of time that you're not sharing it anymore. You are giving your authority away. And all of a sudden, they look at you differently. They don't look at you as management anymore. They look at you as more of a resource. And if you lead that way too long, you become disconnected from your team members, disconnected from your job. And if you lead that way for too long, you'll become disconnected from the company because it will look like you're not doing your job. It is a great way to lead, but you can't lead that way all the time. We all have to practice blended leadership. We should go back and forth throughout the course of the day between those 3 styles of leadership based on the situation, the circumstance, and the individual. Why do we have to do that? The reason that we have to conform our leadership style to meet the needs of every single individual is simply because everybody's different. Some people, they grew up in a single-parent home. Some people grew up in a 2-parent home. Some people grew up under these values, and some folks grew up under these values. Some people went to public school, some people went to private school. Some people graduated college, some people didn't. Some people grew up under these set of laws, other folks grew up under these set of laws. Some folks are spiritual, some people are not. The fact of the matter is, everyone that works for you is different. Therefore, you have to conform your leadership style to meet the needs of every single individual that works for you. Let me give you guys an example. I have 10 employees that work directly for me. I have one young lady, when I bring her into the office, I give her a task to give to the team, and then I never ask her, does she understand the information? Because the fact of the matter is, if she says, yes, I understand, I don't know if she understands or not. I only know that she said that she understands. So I always have her repeat the information back to me, and I ask qualifying questions. It is my responsibility to know that the information I gave to that person, she understands it, and she can deliver it to everyone else. But when she repeats it back to me, I know for a fact that she's got it. When she walks out the door, I know she's got it. As a matter of fact, a lot of times I'll forget exactly what I told her, and she'll remind me exactly of what I said. But then I have another person, I bring him into the office. His name is Philip. I give him similar information to give to the team. I have him repeat the information back. And when he does that, I know he's got it. But when he walks out the door, guess what? He forgets it. And that's why it's important that when he comes in front of me, that he's writing information down. It's very important. And if he does that, he's in really good shape. But then I bring Jimmy into the office. I give him similar information. He repeats it back. He's got it. He walks out the door. He forgets it. We have him write the information down. But the problem with Jimmy is he loses the piece of paper that he wrote it on. And so we have to have him send us an email. That way he has a digital copy that he can refer back to. And my whole point is this, is that if I was to lead one way all the time, it is probable that 2 folks would fail. That's why it's so necessary that we conform our leadership styles to meet the needs of every single individual that works for us. Now, guys, I have an exercise, and I'd like you guys to work in twos on this. I'm gonna give you about 3 minutes. I want you to discuss and to come up with the 5 most critical attributes that you need to demonstrate as a leader to ensure that the people that work for you follow you. I'll give you 3 minutes to work in pairs. What are the 5 most critical attributes that you must demonstrate as a leader to ensure that the people that works for you follow you? I'll give you 3 minutes, and then we'll talk about it on the other side. Okay, time. How many of you think you got it? Okay, we got one. We got one. I'm just going to pull them up really quick. The first one is lead by example. Now, here's my question. What does it mean to lead by example as a manager in today's workplace? What does that mean? It means that you do, you know, and you understand your own personal job at 150% as it pertains to your team members. Your team members can care less about the functionality of your job. They only care about the parts of your job that directly interacts and affects them. That's all they care about. Let me give you an example. How many of you guys have someone on the team right now, they should have been fired a long time ago? Hold on a second. If they're in next to you, don't raise your hand. If you have that person and they're there, if you know they're supposed to go, guess who else knows? The team members know too. But you want to call them in and have a one-on-one coaching session to tell them about what it is that they're doing and not doing. But this person's been here for 18 months, underperforming with a bad attitude. How can we be effective coaches and trainers and leaders when this situation exists? That's a part of our job that directly affects them. I know what you're thinking. Well, Shawn, I don't have the authority. And that's why understanding the definition of leadership is really important. Leadership is your ability to influence others both down and up. If you can't influence your bosses, it is very difficult to be effective in doing your job. Number two is trust, trustworthiness. Oh, okay, it's all good. Trustworthiness. What does it mean to demonstrate trustworthiness as a manager in today's work environment? What does it mean? It basically means that you do what it is that you say that you're going to do. The fact of the matter is that many of us, we don't always do what we say that we're going to do we? I got great news for you. When that happens, your people are understanding of that. But let's just say that you tell them you're going to do something else, and you just don't get around to doing it. I still have great news for you. They're understanding of that too. But let's just say that you tell them that you're going to do something else and you just don't get around to doing it. Sooner or later, the trust starts to break down, erode, dissipate, and all of a sudden, we have created an environment for something very toxic to happen in it. And it starts with a G. It's gossip. 90% of the gossip that happens in corporations today stems from leaders not doing what they say they're going to do. And as soon as we go on a lunch break and we're out of the office, guess what our folks are doing? They're talking about us. And we have to be very careful of what we demonstrate in front of our team members. Number three is mutual respect. Now, I'm going to take you guys back to when mutual respect should start, and that's when a new hire comes through the door. And the way that we show mutual respect is simply this as a manager. When they come in, we're supposed to break down the rules and regulations, policies and procedures. We break down their expectations. We give them a 30, 60, and 90-day goal. We have a reporting system for them to evaluate themselves, where they stand with the goals. Then you take them to the company's vision statement so they understand the value that you bring to society within the organization. Then you take them through the company's mission statement so they understand the standard of excellence in which they deliver the company's products and services. And then after that, you send them through an onboarding training program that's either 1 week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks long. And if you're a great manager, you know they're not going to know all they're supposed to know after the training. You partner that person up with someone who's been with the company for 4, 5, 6 years. You give that person a training agenda so that that person is confident and competent to do the job in a reasonable period of time. And if we've done all of that for the folks that are coming into our organization, we have shown them proper respect. Number 4 is praise. My question is when should we praise our people? And some people will say, Shawn, we should praise them all the time. And the only time that we really should give praise is when your employees go above and beyond the job description. It doesn't mean that you don't give them appreciation. Now, appreciation is different. Appreciation is a one-on-one expression. Hey, I just want to let you know that over the last 3 weeks, you've been doing a great job. It hasn't gone unnoticed. Keep up the good work. That's appreciation. Praise is when the entire team knows about it. That means that someone has gone above and beyond the job description. Now, I'm not saying to you they have to go to the moon and bring back minerals. That's not what I'm saying. But if the job description says that you work from 9 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m., and I ask an employee to stay over 1 hour, that would be going above and beyond, and it warrants praise. And then the last one is experience. And it's not experience in doing your job, that's lead by example. But it's experience and understanding people. There are times as a manager that you have to show some compassion. You have to be empathetic towards your employees. Understanding their emotions, understanding what motivates them is really important. The biggest asset in any organization is who? It's the people. If you want a great company, put the people first. And if you put the people first, essentially you're putting the customer first. And when I was in corporate America, I could tell you that when I got up to go to work, I wanted to work with people that created great and wonderful experiences. And so I leave you today with this one thing, is conform your leadership style to meet the needs of every single individual that works for you and put their best interests first. And if you do that, they'll turn around and put the company's best interests first as well. Thank you.
It seems the audience is quite psyched about your Lexus.
Oh.
Did you get it?
Don't ruin a great story, okay?
Aww.
No, I didn't get the Lexus. It was $20,000 more than the Chrysler 300M. I couldn't afford it. I was at the man's desk. I'm trying to justify this, like how many car washes do I need to make this work? But I didn't get it. I went back to Lisa, and I got the 300. Yeah.
Some of the other questions are actually a little bit of rocket science. Let's see how we can get into them. Could you share some examples when you changed your leadership style and why?
Well, it all depends on the employee. Certain employees respond to different things, right? So if I'm talking about autocratic leadership, if I have someone who's a procrastinator, in other words, they just don't move unless there's pressure. Autocratic leadership would be the leadership style that I would use primarily for that individual because they always need a what? Fire lit underneath them. So if you have a procrastinator, autocratic leadership is the right style. But if I have someone who has 15, 20 years of experience and they do a great job, I'm not going to treat them the same as someone who's fairly new in the organization. I'm going to give them some leeway to do the job the best way that they want. As long as it's legal and ethical, I'm going to demonstrate free reign leadership in that particular situation.
The next question focuses on leadership styles from the focus of a Scrum Master. Scrum Master must behave as a servant leader in the Scrum framework. How to mix leadership styles as a Scrum Master? What do you think?
Every time that you change your leadership style, you are serving the individual. My job is to make sure I get the best out of each person. So depending on the leadership style that's needed for that individual, I'm serving that particular person because if for example, if I have someone who is struggling to get the job done, I am not going to demonstrate free reign leadership for the simple fact is I'm allowing them to make a decision when they don't have the ability to do that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that it's super important to be liked as a leader. And here's the question, whether it's more important to be liked or to be trusted.
Well, I think those go hand in hand. It is very difficult to like someone if you what? If you don't trust them. Those two things really go hand in hand. If I have someone that I'm working for and there is no trust, it is likely that that I don't like them. I think those two go hand in hand.
And let's go back for a second for the leadership styles. Someone is asking, what is the main difference between free reign and democratic style? Because it seems very alike to them, saying that it's team taking responsibility. So what is the biggest difference?
Well, the key thing is that as a democratic leader, I am still giving direction to a degree. In other words, I'm allowing you to give me feedback. And based off of your feedback, I am then taking that information and then I'm giving the direction based off of that feedback. With free reign leadership, I'm not really getting your feedback. I am saying to you, go ahead and do the job as you please because you've demonstrated that you can do the job, you have all the experience, you have the right attitude. So as long as you do the job and you get it done, I'm going to allow you to do it exactly the way that you want it.
And as we talked about free reign now, I would like to address which leadership style do you use most of the time with your team and why?
I'm a democratic leader for the most part. Okay. And my team is mostly millennials. Mm-hmm. And so they bring a lot to the table. I learn a lot from them, but the fact of the matter is they do need some direction, but they love to give feedback. They want to be involved in whatever the company is doing. They want some say-so in it. So I tend to lean towards democratic with that particular group.
And well, the last question I feel is a little huge, but let's ask it, and maybe people will find you in a break to keep on conversation about that. What is the greatest thing about corporate American leadership? Whoa.
I'm live streaming this, right? Here's the fact of the matter, is that in all the companies that I work with, and I tell them this all the time, there's probably only one that if I was to go back to corporate America that I would actually work for. It is dysfunctional, primarily because Most companies do not have a leadership training program. You want to put managers and leaders and have them lead people, but you're not training them on how to lead. Just because you can do your job and you're productive doesn't mean that you know and understand how to manage people. It takes years to understand what management and leading people is really all about. And if there's no structured leadership plan, there's going to be dysfunction and chaos within the organization. People should enjoy coming to work. And the only way that happens is if they work for good leaders.
Thank you so much, Shawn. We are really happy to have you, and we really hope that you are staying for the party because there will be beer, wine, chips, and dips.
Yeah, I will be there to enjoy that. Thank you so much. Okay.
I think they took it back.